Hey guys, welcome to the Bad Blood Football Podcast. It's finally the big day. We're all pretty hyped up for this matchup. It's going to be super crazy. We got the 49ers and the Chiefs. I would say they're, the two best teams throughout the season, which doesn't always happen. So we're just going to get right into it with our predictions. We hope you guys enjoy it, and leave a comment and like and subscribe if you do. So Rob, go ahead and take it away. I can't wait to see Pat Mahomes make you look like a complete idiot after you do whatever mental gymnastics you're going to have to do to pick the 49ers to take this game. So let's hear those.
Sean, you should know me by now. I never do mental gymnastics. These are all backed by facts. Okay, listen. So the 49ers throughout the season, let's say, so they started out at 8-0, and they've only played two teams of significance, the Steelers and the Rams, throughout the first half of the season. Through the second half of the season, they won games when their season continued to get increasingly more difficult. When they played the Seahawks twice, they only lost one of those. They played the Packers, they won against them in the playoffs as well. They lost to the Ravens, they won a shootout with the Saints, which is why the main reason why I do think that they will be the victorious team in the Super Bowl is because they were able to face the Saints, someone as Drew Brees, who's comparable to Pat Mahomes' ability to throw the ball, and they were able to win that shootout. And they also played the Rams, which they won. Jimmy G, he had better stats in the second half of the season, so he's kind of, a renewed Jimmy G as coming into the playoffs. Now, his playoff numbers are definitely not as good as they should be, but their running game is really pulling that slack. So during the first half of the season, the Niners were averaging 29 points, and they were only allowing 12.75 points a game. Their average passing yards were 225 yards. Their average rushing high was 80 yards. Their average receiving high was 80 yards as well. For the second half of the season, they still scored an average 29 points per game. They allowed 26 points per game. So I guess you can say the defense was getting a little bit laxed, but they were playing better teams. All of their stats went up in the passing game. So for the Chiefs, during their first season, being a extremely pass-heavy team, with no real running attack at all, because Damian Williams is honestly, he should be on the bench at a different team. He's really not that good. They were averaging 311 yards per game. Their average rushing yards were 49 yards per game, which is absolutely abysmal. And their average receiving high was about 110.5 yards a game. They were averaging 28 points, which is pretty comparable to the 49ers in the first half of the season. They were allowing 22 points, so they obviously had a little bit of a rocky start. It's kind of a flip-flop story for these two teams. So the Chiefs, at the second half of the season, they allowed less points. They were scoring the same amount of points on average per game in the second half of the season. But Mahomes was actually producing less yards, and the rushing attack actually increased, which I don't understand why. They really should have kept Mahomes going, even though he's a little bit above average. But, he's still, with the weapons around him, he's able to win them games. Their rushing high on average was 71.5 yards. The receiving high was over 100 yards, and their passing average was over 250 yards per game. So when you compare quarterbacks, obviously this is kind of a difference of both young quarterbacks. One is more of a pocket passer in Jimmy G. That's pretty obvious. Pat Mahomes, he can move around with his legs, throw the no-look passes. I don't know why he does that, but obviously it's working for him. So when you're comparing the two quarterbacks, Mahomes was out for a couple of games. However, he still did gain more yards. He had 4,031 yards, while Jimmy G had 3,978 yards. Jimmy G had one more touchdown at 27 touchdowns. Pat Mahomes, 26. Jimmy G had double, almost triple the amount of interceptions. Now, that might be to his first year actually really being a starter. He's almost like a rookie at this point, especially starting. He had double the amount of sacks.
I think it's because he sucks.
Well, you're just fucking wrong, Sean. I think Jimmy G is a very solid quarterback. To be honest with you, he had better pass accuracy on average. So he is 20 for 29 most games. When Pat Mahomes and the backup quarterback ended up coming in, they were 23 for 35. So, he had better accuracy throughout the entire season. And during
I don't know about that.
He was more accurate. It's in the statistics. He was more accurate than Pat Mahomes throughout the regular season.
Throughout the regular season, but when we're talking about the postseason, Patrick Mahomes is the highest career passer rating, touchdown to interception ratio in the playoffs by any player in the Super Bowl era.
No, and that is... That is definitely, no, you're definitely right. We are talking about now, but I do think the season as a whole is going to be kind of the story for this Super Bowl because, you have two teams that are really hot right now, regardless. But I think the longevity of the 49ers is going to kind of show, where it's going to be they're a run-heavy team at this moment in time. We're going to talk about now. Raheem Mostert is dominating. He's arguably more of an effective player than Pat Mahomes because you throw everybody off balance with a running attack that is so dominant. He had over 200 yards, like I said, set so many records in the championship game. He's an unstoppable force, at least against the Packers, and I'm curious to see if he's going to produce the same amount against the Chiefs. So this 49ers triple threat rushing attack with Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Matt Pereira, they're all healthy for this game. So that's going to be an interesting kind of look at this because you're going to have three healthy running backs that are going to be absolutely, monster games. I'm assuming that they're all going to be very involved in this game. It's going to take time off the clock because unlike the Titans, they're actually going to have a quarterback that's going to be able to produce. I'm not saying Ryan Tannehill did not do his job in the championship game against the Chiefs. However, Jimmy G is always going to be better than Ryan Tannehill, especially in this situation. And then you have three good running backs, not just one, who are able to carry workloads kind of throughout. And then you have receivers such as Deebo Samuel, who's a rookie. He's their middle, he's the guy who catches things over the middle. He catches the ball, takes the hit. It's always him. He has 19% involvement over the games, which is, so I think, he was involved a fifth of the time throughout most games. You also have guys like Emmanuel Sanders, so the 49ers acquired him from the Broncos after trading, a third and fourth round pick to them, which he overall started to perform more for the Niners than he did for the Broncos, which I think was a phenomenal trade. They really should have maybe tried to get that in the beginning of the season to get him into the offense more, but he overall was involved in this offense a fourth of the time. Jimmy G looked his way at least 7 times in the first 2 games he played with them. He had almost 70 yards per game and a touchdown in both games.
Here come those mental gymnastics I was telling you guys about. So, he's been talking for like an hour here, and I still don't understand, what the 49ers have shown him to make him think they would win. They faced the Packers and the Vikings so far this playoffs, 2 teams that, basically sucked. Like, I can't even, just really some of the weakest teams in the playoffs. So, what do you think about that, Rob? Like, what have they shown in the playoffs that leads you to think they have any chance of beating a team like the Chiefs, who, they got 51 points against the Texans, and they killed the Titans, who looked like a fantastic team, probably the 3rd best team this playoffs. What do you think of that, Rob?
Yeah, no. I can't disagree with you. The Vikings are garbage. That was a preseason game for the 49ers, in my opinion. The Vikings were they looked horrible. So I'm just going to skip that because that was an automatic win in the 49ers book in my eyes. The Packers, on the other hand, although they started out poorly, I do think that was the best showing for the 49ers offense that they have shown all season, especially looking at the running attack, stuff along those lines. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He definitely turned on the Jets in the second half of the game. That's undoubtable. He's playing like his own self. Obviously, he didn't have a Hall of Fame game as a whole. Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be comparable like Drew Brees and Pat Mahomes. They play the same type of game. Especially Aaron Rodgers, more like Drew Brees, is going to be a little more active in the backfield. So he kind of mimics Pat Mahomes. Obviously, the Packers are not on the same level as the Chiefs as of right this instant. But I do think that's a good showing of what the 49ers can do. And their defense was able to shut down a Hall of Fame quarterback in Rodgers. I just think that it's going to be the same deal against the Chiefs. I think that defensive line, Bosa, Armstead, all those guys are going to be just dominant up front. The Chiefs' offensive line is not going to be able to stop them. I know for a fact. And Mahomes is going to be on his back, I bet, 6 or 7 times this game. Because I think he's going to be too cocky with trying to get outside the pocket, trying to, do his no-look bullshit and all that stuff. It's not going to flow against this 49ers dominant defense.
I don't know. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is fit to be Pat Mahomes' water boy at this point. So I don't.
That was the most idiotic comment you've ever made. His water boy, bro. Pat Mahomes has not shown his ability to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, unlike Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has shown time and time again.
Because he's so young, man.
No, but Aaron Rodgers was showing that when he was that young. He was always promising.
All right, well, Pat Mahomes has only been in the league for a few years now. Give him time. He'll be a Hall of Famer. And I don't know why
you say so.
you're trying to make the Packers fans that are listening right now, make them feel better saying it was a good matchup. I don't think that was a good matchup at all. Like I said, when we predicted that game, I knew the 49ers were going to win. I knew they were going to shut down the Packers run game. And when you can't establish your own run game, that kind of puts you at a deficit. And I don't see any comparison. The Chiefs had a way harder postseason schedule so far. I mean, look at the Houston game that they had to face. They were at a 24 deficit in the first half, and they came back to that and scored 51 points in their fucking face. And then they came into this Titans game who had the best rusher in the league. And although the stats are all in favor of the 49ers and their defense ability to stop the run game, the Chiefs stood their ground. They fucking stopped the best rusher in the league. And, I mean, I think they can play to whatever ability and any kind of dynamic that the other team is going to try to throw at them. I don't see this three-headed monster that you're saying the 49ers are running on that offensive running back squad. I see the Chiefs fighting back, and I see them holding down their ground. So for me, I'm looking at the Chiefs in this game. I mean, I think they're going to do phenomenal. I know, like I said before, Pat Mahomes has the highest career passing rating in the playoffs in this whole Super Bowl era currently. And people that I love to watch, obviously Travis Kelce. And if we can compare the two tight ends on these teams, yes, both tight ends are phenomenal. But I mean, Travis Kelce is all around just a way better tight end than George Kittle. He's had 408 targets, 283 receptions, over 3,500 yards, and 23 touchdowns. And that just blows the stats blows Kittle out of the water. Like, there's no comparison on that side. I know there's a bunch of matchups with the Chiefs and 49ers that we should definitely look into, which is the Honey Badger at safety against George Kittle, which I know for sure they're going to be matching up. And another thing, while you were trying to speak on behalf of Garoppolo and how well he's performing this postseason, I mean, he did a horrible performance this last game against the Packers. I mean, he took on the two early on games by Tannehill, only averaging 77 yards a game. Why do you think he's going to be even more dynamic now at this point? I don't see him being as dynamic. I see him being the same as he played against the Packers, and I see the Chiefs holding their ground. The Chiefs obviously by ESPN are the favorite, and I'm sticking with that. I think they earned it. They're a way more dynamic team in my eyes. But I believe in Pat Mahomes. I think he's an overall way better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo is. I think their defense can hold the ground, like I said. I definitely am astonished by the Chiefs' special teams. They've done a phenomenal job, and Hardman has been fucking returning that ball like no other. So I could see them performing well on all sides of the ball in this game. I know it's going to be a really great game to watch. I'm very excited for this fucking game.
I'm going to address your comment to why Jimmy G has been, in your opinion, terrible in these last two games, because I 100% disagree with you. I think that was a very misinformed statement. So Jimmy G, he has been carrying the weight that he needs to. So he was, he only had, 16 attempts over these last two games. But they've been feeding it to the people that they need to, and Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert. So, you feed the beast as he keeps going. You don't take away from that because, granted, yes, it's a one-dimensional offense. You're only running the ball. It's just like the Titans were, and I agree with you. And Ryan Tannehill maybe looked better, and I agree. But Ryan Tannehill was at his maximum potential when he was playing. That's the problem. Jimmy G has all this bottled up potential. He's going to unleash during the Super Bowl if the run game is stopped. Because I do agree. Frank Clark, he leads in sacks. That defensive line is comparable to the 49ers defense. But I do think that if the run game gets stuffed up, I think Jimmy G can do a better job than Ryan Tannehill can. I think he's proven himself time and time again throughout the season to be a quarterback that they can rely on. Now, I'm also going to address the comment that you made about them being down by 24 points. Now, they've been down 24 points in the last two playoff games that they've played, which is terrible. Any other team besides them would have lost those two games without a doubt. However, they haven't played a defensive team like the 49ers in the playoffs that will be able to actually stop them from getting any points. So, if they decide they want to start slow again, if Pat Mahomes doesn't wake up until the second quarter, they're going to be in trouble. If they're down 24 points on the 49ers by the half, they're not going to win. Because that defensive line and the defensive backs, I always say it, but Richard Sherman, Jimmy Ward, Kwan Williams, all those guys they're phenomenal. They've been phenomenal. Richard Sherman, like I've been saying, he is phenomenal, and I do think it's going to be very troublesome for the people on his side of the field. We discussed it last time. He doesn't move with receivers. I think that might be a little bit of an issue because of Tyreek Hill. But if he's throwing coverage on Travis Kelce, it's going to be you're not going to throw to him. And I mean, maybe the no look shit will work for a play or two, but I mean, I think Richard Sherman is smart enough to not overthink things, and I think he's going to be a troublesome cornerback for Mahomes to deal with.
I don't think Sherman's going to do shit, dude. You got two huge mismatches. So you got, Tyreek Hill is just going to burn him like so easily, so much faster. And then you got Travis Kelce, who is just way too big. You know what I mean? Like I just think that Mahomes has exactly the tools that he needs to get by a corner like Richard Sherman. And I don't know, he always throws in the perfect spot. He's not going to give up interceptions to this guy. And I don't even think he's a concern. You just treat him like anybody else.
Well, and going against Richard Sherman, I don't know if you guys have noticed or saw, but he performs 97% of his coverage on the right side of the field, on the right side of the ball. So if you can line up your main receivers, say Kelce and Hill on the left side, he doesn't feel comfortable in that area. That's a fact. Now looking at the stats, he doesn't go over that side of the field because he feels way more comfortable on the right side of the ball. So if you can set your offensive lineup on the left side with your star receivers and have those other weak corners try to defend them, as such, like you said, Tyreek Hill just burn right past them. I mean, that's a clear shot for a good deep ball by Pat Mahomes.
Listen, so Kwan Williams is not a weak link on this defensive backfield. I think that he is a phenomenal quarterback. And yeah, Tyreek Hill might be fast, but the Titans took him away because he was not producing like he should have. Now, granted, they have Sammy Watkins, which is a comparable wide receiver. But I think that you take him away. Travis Kelce was shut down the week before against the Titans. He
was playing hurt.
He is playing hurt. You know what I mean? So you have this banged up receiver core, which granted everyone's banged up at the end of the season. That's why they give them that extra week off to kind of recover. There's no real big injuries this week, which is a good thing. I mean, it'll be able to show the absolute power of these two offenses and defenses at the maximums, which I think is fantastic. It's going to be very exciting. But I do think the defensive backs for the Niners are going to be a level above these receivers 100% of the time. Travis Kelce may be the only one that gives them problems because linebackers will be covering. Now, I'm not saying the linebackers can't cover, but it's going to be a little more difficult just because Travis Kelce is so big, very large target, very reliable when catching the ball.
So, Rob, what does a game look like that the Chiefs end up winning here? So, you're predicting the 49ers to win, but what does it look like if the Chiefs end up taking this game? What do they need to do well? What do the 49ers need to do wrong, either way?
So, the 49ers need to be completely shut down. If the defensive line of the Chiefs are able to completely disintegrate this three-headed monster that the 49ers have, because they all have over 500 yards this season, which is phenomenal. With three running backs over 500 yards, you're able to spread that ball out and get different looks from different running backs.
And I have to disagree with you right there, Rob. This three-headed monster, as we've seen with other teams, where, as we were talking about with Houston, with Duke Johnson, he was on fire, yet they still gave the ball to Carlos Hyde. Am I wrong?
No, you're right, and I totally agree. They should have gave it.
And so, do you think spreading the ball out that much between three different players is not going to give them enough carries to get them motivated and get them going down the field, get anyone hot on their running back core? I just feel like rotating through all three of those guys consistently will not get them, at least one of them, feeling comfortable enough to be explosive on their offensive side.
So what I think needs to happen is they need to do what they've been doing, is feeling their way through this. So if Raheem Mostert gets hot again, keep giving him the ball. Those two running backs will get some carries, but that'll just be to give Mostert a break. If Coleman gets hot, same deal. But going back to like what the Chiefs need to do, in my eyes, to win this ball game is to A, shut down the run game, B, make Jimmy G very uncomfortable, especially once they shut down that run game. They need to put him on his back and make him off balance the rest of the game. Pat Mahomes has to have, dare I say it, a Hall of Fame game to be able to even have a chance at beating this 49ers defense. And Tyreek Hill needs to actually be able to catch the ball when he's targeted. Travis Kelce's going to get his catches. That's undeniable. He needs to score probably at least 2 TDs to even be in this game because you have to target that big tight end. But I think that defensive backfield is going to be a little troublesome for guys like Sammy Watkins. He's a big guy. He's good. But I do think that he's going to be heavily targeted by these defensive backs and safeties where you're going to have Tyreek who, he did punch his pregnant wife in the stomach, which, that might come back to bite him with some karma. But
the man's here to play. Boy.
You're right. He is here to play, but you don't punch a pregnant woman in the stomach. But I digress. 100%. I digress. So Tyreek Hill needs to get his shit together. Sammy Watkins, just better watch out for those deep safeties. The cornerbacks are going to be all over him. Travis Kelce's going to have to deal with those linebackers. The offensive line's going to have to perform phenomenal against his defensive line. That's absolutely dominant. Yeah, the Chiefs need to have a flawless game. Everybody needs to play Hall of Fame football in this game.
So my problem with that is that the Chiefs held Tennessee to just 85 yards, and, I don't even think it's arguable, really. The Titans have a much better rushing game than even the 49ers do. So if they're able to do that to Derrick Henry...
We discussed this last week. So it was a bad coaching move. They should have kept feeding him. It is shown time and time again that Derrick Henry gets going in the second half. He has almost all of his yards in the second half of the game. Why in the world were they not giving him the ball? Even though they were stopping him, that's undeniable. But you keep feeding him, they're going to wear him down. Like even a guy like Frank Clark, he's probably over 250 pounds. He's an outside backer. He's used to hitting these big guys. But Derrick Henry, he's a monster. They should have kept giving him the ball. And I think the 49ers will be smarter than that. You got a little bit smaller guys. They're obviously not Derrick Henry size, but they're quicker. I think that those guys are going to be more of a challenge for this defensive line to really, handle in regards to that. And plus, you'll be able to keep them fresh if you're able to rotate them. But, to go back to why the Titans had, 85 yards. Okay, the Chiefs had a good game. Bad coaching on the Titans side, in my opinion. I don't think the 49ers are going to be nearly as stupid as that. And I think that's just how it's going to be.
Okay. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I want to hear, what Dan thinks about it.
All right, and I agree with you on some points on how the Chiefs need to get this dub. You got Travis Kelce, who averages almost 74 yards per game in the playoffs. He's the most among tight ends in the Super Bowl era. I don't agree with your earlier assessment that you were saying that the running backs are too weak. I know they're not the greatest, and the stats show that, but and also to come back on your criticism about Mahomes is his no-look pass. I could see that happening down in the flat with his running backs if he gets pressured by Nick Bosa or any player on the defensive line from the 49ers. So maybe not the run game might not all be there for the Chiefs, but they're very diversible, and they're gonna do a lot of checkdowns, I'm assuming, if it's not down the field with Sherman and all these other guys in coverage. But I just don't see the 49ers pulling this through, to be honest. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo, like you said, the Chiefs need to make him play this fucking game. He can't just skim by while his running back runs all up and down the fucking field. And I believe the Chiefs are going to be able to stop him, which will force Jimmy Garoppolo to have to make big plays. And I just don't think he's ready for that. I don't see him having a great game at all. I see him having an average game. I definitely don't think this is going to be a blowout game by any means, but I don't see this being a game where Jimmy Garoppolo can hang.
So, okay. So I think we actually had this conversation. So we all agreed that Jimmy needs to prove himself. And the way he's going to prove himself is if he's not able to be comfortable just giving the ball to his running backs. I think we all agreed on this, that Jimmy G has not proven himself to be a, phenomenal quarterback yet. It's surprising with his stats. He was throwing an interception you had 2 touchdowns to every interception, stuff like that. I think if he's able to have a game that he's going to have, in my opinion. I think he's going to have a phenomenal game. I think he's going to kind of harness his inner Brady and really come out and just light up this field. And it's just, he's going to come in when the time is needed for him to come in and absolutely dominate when he needs to, and I think that's what's most important. I know he has not proven himself. I understand this. But, he needs to prove himself at some point, and what a better time to start than now.
All right, guys. So do we have any closing thoughts that we want to end here with?
I honestly think, also just pointing out, like, looking back at the Chiefs' regular season, I don't think that has really been talked about too much. They were at a deficit. Week 1, Tyreek Hill got injured. They were without their star receiver for multiple games. And then you look into how they performed without him, and they still were getting win after win after win. They started the first 5 games in the regular season 4-1. And then to advance onto that, in week 7, you had Pat Mahomes go down. And, regardless, they had a loss in the next 3 games that he was out. But when they came back, the record was still almost flawless. They only recorded 2 losses in the first 10 weeks of the regular season. So I think the Chiefs performed really well, even without their star players. And now that everyone's healthy, like you said, no injuries going into this game. Everyone's playing the fucking ass off this fucking game. And you got all your stars on the field. I think the Chiefs got it. Pat Mahomes is healthy. Tyreek Hill is healthy. Travis Kelce got healthy off this week vacation that they had during the Pro Bowl. Yeah, like I said, and like everyone listening, I'm standing by the Chiefs on this game at all sides.
So I think we need to end with this. I think we need to say our predictions again because I don't believe that I said mine. So I'm going to start with mine. I think it's an obvious thing. I think the ESPN matchup predictor is the most idiotic piece of software I've ever seen. They have the Chiefs at a 64.8% favor. I think it's just wrong. I think the 49ers are gonna pull this out, 38-34. It's gonna be a very close game. Gonna come down to the absolute wire, maybe even overtime. I don't even know. But I do think it's gonna be a shootout regardless. No matter what. As much as I like to talk up this defensive line, getting Mahomes on his back, it's impossible to ignore the fact that he has absolutely lit up defenses the last 2 weeks. I do think it's going to be a shootout. I think Jimmy G is going to step into his Brady shoes this week and pull out one of the greatest victories the 49ers have ever seen.
And I agree with you on your prediction, but flip that. I think the Chiefs are winning this game 38-31, favor of the Chiefs. I think they'll do a phenomenal job. Obviously, they've been doing all postseason on their offense. Even if they come into this game in maybe the first half, first quarter, they're below the 49ers. I could see them still fighting their way back. They have such an explosive offense that I completely believe in this team. I believe in Andy Reid. I think this is his fucking year. It should be his year. He's a phenomenal coach. He deserves it. So yeah, I'm running with the Chiefs on this one.
Yeah. All right. So, in closing, guys, we're going to have another episode. We should release it on probably Tuesday. Along with that, though, you should check out our YouTube if you're listening to this elsewhere. We're going to be releasing this unboxing video. Dan beat Rob in our playoff prediction contest. Sad it couldn't come down to the Super Bowl, but yeah, it's already over. So we sent a t-shirt to Rob. He's going to be opening it on camera. He doesn't know what it is yet, so it should be pretty fun. So we'll probably have that released Tuesday as well. So, look out for that, guys. Make sure you check out our Twitter. We'll be tweeting a little bit during this game. So I'll see you next week.